Ma'am, stop right there. Step back from the truck, now. The officer's voice cracked through the plaza, sharp enough to turn heads. He glanced at the matte black Tesla Cybertruck, then back at the woman holding its key card, his expression already decided. We've been tracking this vehicle for weeks, he said. And let's be honest, this isn't something you just end up owning. People slowed. Footsteps hesitated. A couple standing near the cafe turned around at the same time. The woman didn't flinch. She looked at the officer the way people do when they're mentally cataloging mistakes, not reacting, just observing. The Cybertruck sat in the visitor parking section of Meridian Plaza, its angular black surface absorbing the Thursday afternoon light. Everything about it looked deliberate, the color, the location, the 30-degree angle it occupied in the space. Not careless parking. Just the geometry of someone who'd backed in carefully. Officer Luis Vargas moved closer, positioning himself between the woman and the driver's door. His uniform was crisp despite the warmth, his badge catching occasional glints of sun. 22 years on the force showed in his posture. Confident, immovable, accustomed to compliance. I'm going to need you to set that key card down and step away from the vehicle, he continued, his voice carrying across the courtyard where outdoor tables hosted late lunches and afternoon coffee meetings. The woman, mid-40s, wearing charcoal slacks and a cream blouse under a structured blazer, lowered the key card but didn't set it down. She held it loosely in her right hand, visible, non-threatening. Officer, I own this vehicle, she said. Her voice was level, almost neutral. The kind of tone that came from years of speaking in rooms where emotion was liability. Ma'am, that's what we're here to determine. Vargas pulled a small notepad from his belt. This vehicle matches the description of several high-value units involved in interstate fraud schemes. We've had 3 separate reports in the last month. Reports of what specifically? Fraudulent purchases, identity theft, sophisticated financing scams targeting luxury electric vehicles. And you're stopping me because? Because this vehicle fits the profile. What profile is that? Vargas looked up from his notepad. High-end Tesla, recent purchase, driven by someone who doesn't match the typical ownership demographic for vehicles in this price range. The accusation wasn't explicit, but it didn't need to be. The words created their own architecture, each one carefully chosen, defensible in a report, devastating in implication. Around them, the plaza continued its rhythm, but the tempo had changed. Conversations dropped in volume. A man in a suit paused mid-step near the water feature. 2 women at a nearby table stopped eating, their sandwiches forgotten. The woman with the key card shifted her weight slightly, adjusting the leather portfolio tucked under her left arm. Officer, what's your name? Officer Vargas, badge 3847. Officer Vargas, I'm asking you directly. What specific, articulable facts led you to stop me? The legal language wasn't accidental. Specific, articulable facts. The standard for reasonable suspicion. Fourth Amendment territory. Vargas's expression didn't change, but his writing hand paused fractionally. Ma'am, I've already explained. This vehicle matches an active investigation profile. You said it matches a description. That's not the same as an active investigation into this specific vehicle. We're investigating a pattern of fraud. This vehicle fits that pattern. Fitting a pattern isn't probable cause. It's sufficient for a preliminary investigation. Is it? The question hung between them, not confrontational, just precise. The kind of question that invited the responder to commit to a position they'd have to defend later. Vargas keyed his radio. Dispatch Unit 47. I'm at Meridian Plaza with a black Tesla Cybertruck, license plate 9HTK567. Need a full registration check and cross-reference with recent fraud advisories. Static then, copy Unit 47. Stand by for registration. A security guard from the plaza emerged from the main building. Younger guy, maybe late 20s, polo shirt with a Meridian security patch. He approached slowly, reading the situation. Officer, everything okay here? Conducting a vehicle verification, Vargas replied without looking away from the woman. Keep the area clear. The guard nodded but didn't leave. He positioned himself near the building entrance, visible but not interfering. His radio was in his hand. More people were watching now. Not crowding, not intervening, just present. A teenager with headphones around his neck had stopped near the bike racks. An older man with a walking cane stood by the fountain. The couple from the cafe had moved closer to the railing overlooking the parking area. The woman finally spoke again. Officer Vargas, how long do you anticipate this taking? as long as necessary to verify ownership and legitimacy of the purchase. I have the registration in the vehicle. I'll need to verify it through official channels first. Why? Because fraud operations use falsified documents. I'm sure you understand the need for thoroughness. I understand the need for legal justification. Vargas made another note. The woman's responses were going into his report. Every word, every question, every moment of what he would later characterize as evasiveness or non-compliance. His radio crackled. Unit 47, registration shows vehicle is registered to Dr. Elena Voss, address in Riverside Heights. No active theft reports, no liens, no warrants. Insurance current through National General. Vargas looked up. Dr. Voss? That's correct. What kind of doctor? Juris Doctor. You're an attorney. I hold a law degree. Where do you practice? I don't practice. I serve on the bench. Something shifted in Vargas's posture, not backing down but recalculating. You're a judge. I am. What court? The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The words landed quietly, almost casually. No emphasis, no drama. Just information delivered in the same neutral tone she'd maintained throughout. Vargas wrote it down. His handwriting was less neat now, the letters slightly compressed. Judge Voss, if you'd mentioned that earlier, we could have cleared this up faster. My profession isn't relevant to whether I legitimately own this vehicle. It provides context. For what? For understanding the situation. You mean it makes you more comfortable believing I could afford it? Vargas didn't respond to that. He keyed his radio again. Dispatch Unit 47. Can you run a VIN verification on that Cybertruck? I want to confirm the registration matches manufacturer records. Copy Unit 47. That'll take a few minutes. Elena Voss, Judge Voss, checked her watch. A slim silver piece, no visible branding, the kind of understated expense that came from not needing to announce it. Officer, I have a conference in 40 minutes. I need to know if I'm free to leave. Not until we complete the verification. You've confirmed the registration is valid. I'm confirming the purchase history. Based on what suspicion? You've established I'm the registered owner. What additional crime are you investigating? Potential identity fraud in the original purchase. Do you have evidence of that? I'm gathering evidence now. By detaining me without probable cause? The legal chess match was playing out in real time, each move documented by witnesses who understood, or were beginning to understand, that they were watching something significant unfold. A woman near the fountain had her phone out now, angled toward the scene. Not obviously recording, but positioned. Ready. Vargas noticed. His jaw tightened slightly. Ma'am, Your Honor, I'm going to need you to remain patient while we complete our due diligence. I've been patient for 18 minutes. I'm asking for legal justification. And I've provided it. Multiple times. You've provided assertions. Not justification. Elena's phone buzzed in her blazer pocket. Once, then twice in quick succession. The emergency contact pattern she'd programmed for Chambers. She didn't reach for it, but Vargas tracked the movement. Are you expecting a call? He asked. I'm always expecting calls. I'm a federal appellate judge. Anyone urgent? Officer Vargas, are you now investigating my phone calls? I'm trying to understand if there's a legitimate reason you need to leave quickly. The legitimate reason is that you have no legal basis to continue detaining me. His radio crackled again. Unit 47, we're running the VIN check now. System is running slow, probably another 10 to 15 minutes. Elena checked her watch again. 3:17 p.m. The conference call started at 3:45. She'd need to be in her car, connected via Bluetooth, pulling up case files on her tablet while driving. The appeal involved evidentiary standards for digital surveillance, warrantless searches, expectation of privacy, Fourth Amendment protections. The irony wasn't lost on her. Officer Vargas, she said, her tone shifting slightly, still calm but with an edge of finality. I'm going to explain something to you very carefully. I am Judge Elena Voss. I serve on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. I am currently assigned to a 3-judge panel hearing an emergency appeal that begins in 28 minutes. My absence will delay federal proceedings and impact case scheduling across multiple districts. She paused, letting that information settle. You have confirmed my registration is valid. You have no evidence of fraud. You have no probable cause for this detention. What you have is a suspicion based on the fact that you find it implausible that someone who looks like me owns a vehicle like this. Vargas's face reddened slightly. Judge Voss, I haven't made any assumptions based on your appearance. Then what assumptions have you made? That high-value vehicle fraud requires careful investigation. Investigation of what? You've confirmed I'm the legitimate owner. I'm confirming the legitimacy of the purchase transaction, without any evidence suggesting it was illegitimate. The pattern of fraud in this area. A pattern is not evidence. A profile is not probable cause. And my appearance is not reasonable suspicion. The plaza had gone quieter. Not silent. Cars still passed on the street beyond, the fountain still ran, distant conversations still murmured, but the immediate area had developed a specific quality of attention. People were listening without appearing to listen. The woman with the phone had definitely started recording now. Her hand was steady, her angle clear. A second person, younger, maybe college-aged, had pulled out their phone too. 2 angles, 2 witnesses, 2 digital records being created in real time. Vargas's radio crackled. Unit 47, courthouse security is on the line. They're asking about Judge Elena Voss. Says she's missing from a scheduled panel and not responding to emergency contacts. They want to know if we've had any incidents reported. The transmission was loud enough for Elena to hear. Loud enough for several of the nearby witnesses to hear. Vargas stood very still. Unit 47, do you copy? He keyed the radio slowly. Copy, dispatch. No incidents reported. Judge Voss's, she's here. At Meridian Plaza. Courthouse security is asking for confirmation of her status and location. Elena's phone buzzed again, the triple pulse pattern. Emergency. She pulled it out deliberately, showing Vargas the screen. Chambers Chief Judge Morrison. She answered. Judge Morrison. A voice came through, urgent but controlled. Elena, where are you? We have 3 parties on hold, 2 clerks waiting, and an emergency motion that can't proceed without a full panel. I've been detained at Meridian Plaza by local police. Officer Luis Vargas, badge 3847. I'm working on resolving it now. Detained? On what grounds? Suspected vehicle fraud. My Cybertruck apparently doesn't match his demographic expectations. There was a pause on the other end, the kind of pause that contained calculations about federal jurisdiction, civil rights implications, and institutional response protocols. Elena, I'm calling courthouse security and the police commissioner. Stay on the line. Chief Judge, that's not. But Morrison had already put her on hold. Elena lowered the phone slightly, looking at Vargas. Officer, I believe this situation is about to escalate beyond your immediate control. Vargas's face had gone pale. His hand moved to his radio, then away from it, then back. The muscle memory of procedure confronting the reality of consequences. Judge Voss, I apologize for the delay. You're free to go. Officer Vargas, I need the incident number for this stop. Your Honor, there's no need to formalize. You detained a federal judge for 23 minutes without probable cause. You questioned my vehicle ownership after confirming valid registration. You requested database searches based on demographic profiling. This requires documentation. The teenager near the bike racks had moved closer. The man with the cane had been joined by 2 others. The security guard was speaking into his radio, probably alerting plaza management. The architecture of attention had been built. Now it needed to be preserved. Dispatch, Vargas said into his radio, his voice tight. Generate an incident report for Unit 47. Traffic stop at Meridian Plaza. Subject cleared after verification. Copy. Report number 2024 MP 6683. Elena noted the number in her phone. Then she looked directly at Vargas. Not with anger, not with satisfaction. Just with the clear-eyed assessment of someone who understood exactly what had happened and why. Officer Vargas, I'm going to ask you a question. What specific facts led you to suspect my vehicle was fraudulent after dispatch confirmed my registration was legitimate? Vargas didn't answer. That silence, Elena said quietly, is what I'll remember. Not the detention. Not the embarrassment. The silence where justification should exist. She unlocked the Cybertruck with a soft beep, placed her portfolio on the passenger seat and got in. The door closed with the solid thunk of expensive engineering. Through the windshield, she could see Vargas standing in the parking space, his notepad still in his hand, surrounded by witnesses whose phones had documented everything. She started the vehicle, that distinctive electric hum, and backed out carefully, precisely following every traffic rule with deliberate attention. As she pulled onto the main road, her phone connected to the car's system. Chief Judge Morrison's voice filled the cabin. Elena, I've spoken with Commissioner Hayes. He's launching an immediate review. Are you all right? I'm fine, Chief Judge. But I need to get to this conference call. The parties are aware there's been a delay. They're standing by. Elena, this needs to be addressed properly. I agree. But right now, I need to focus on the appeal. We can discuss the rest afterward. She ended the call and pulled up the case file on her dash display. 3 parties, constitutional questions about search and seizure, Fourth Amendment protections against unreasonable stops. The universe had a dark sense of humor. The first email arrived at 6:47 p.m. that evening. Subject: Administrative Review Notice, Incident 2024, MP 6683. Officer Luis Vargas was requested to provide a supplementary report detailing the basis for the traffic stop, the justification for extended detention, and the specific facts supporting reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. The request came from the Office of Professional Standards, Internal Affairs, and included a CC to the Police Commissioner, the Department's Legal Counsel, and the Civil Rights Division of the State Attorney General's Office. By Friday morning, Vargas was sitting across from his union representative and 2 attorneys from the city's Risk Management Department in a windowless conference room that smelled like old coffee and institutional anxiety. "Walk us through your reasoning," said Amanda Pierce, the senior risk management attorney. She wore reading glasses that magnified her eyes slightly, giving her an unsettling appearance of seeing more than she should. "There was an active advisory about Tesla Cybertrucks," Vargas began. "Multiple reports of fraud schemes involving high-value electric vehicles." "The advisory mentioned specific VIN ranges," Pierce interrupted. "Did you verify Judge Voss's VIN against those ranges before initiating the stop?" Vargas hesitated. "The vehicle matched the general description." "That's not what I asked. Did you check the VIN before stopping her?" "No." "Why not?" "I made a field judgment based on available information." Pierce removed her glasses and cleaned them with a microfiber cloth, the kind of deliberate gesture that gave her time to formulate her next question with precision. "Officer Vargas, what specific facts about Judge Voss's vehicle or behavior led you to suspect fraud?" "The vehicle was high value. She was in a visitor parking area during business hours. Millions of people park in visitor areas during business hours. That's not suspicious." Combined with the fraud advisory, which didn't match her VIN. "So what else?" Vargas looked at his union rep, who gave him a slight nod. Permission to be honest, or maybe just acknowledgement that honesty was the only option left. "She didn't look like someone who would own that vehicle." The words landed in the conference room like evidence at a crime scene. Undeniable. Damning. Pierce put her glasses back on. "Explain what you mean by that." Vehicles in that price range are usually owned by tech executives, finance professionals, people in their 30s and 40s with specific demographic backgrounds." "What demographic background?" "I don't know. Successful people." "And Judge Voss didn't look successful to you?" "I didn't say that." "Then what didn't match?" The trap had closed. There was no way to answer that wouldn't confirm what everyone already knew. Pierce pulled out a tablet and turned it toward Vargas. On the screen was a video, shot from a phone, slightly shaky but clear enough. It showed the entire encounter from the moment Vargas first approached until Judge Voss drove away. "This video has been viewed 47,000 times since yesterday evening," Pierce said. "It's been picked up by 3 major news outlets. The State Attorney General's Civil Rights Division has already opened a preliminary inquiry, and the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Section has requested copies of all related documentation." She paused, letting the information settle. "Officer Vargas, you didn't just stop a citizen. You stopped a federal appellate judge. You detained her without probable cause. You questioned her ownership of a legitimately registered vehicle based on what you've now admitted was a demographic assessment. Do you understand the implications?" Vargas's throat felt dry. "I was following my training." "Your training taught you to profile people based on whether they look like they belong?" "My training taught me to recognize patterns." "Patterns of what?" "Of fraud. Of inconsistency. Of situations that don't add up." The union rep finally spoke. "Officer Vargas has 22 years of commendable service. This is being taken out of context." "Context?" Pierce's voice sharpened. "The context is that a federal judge was publicly detained while multiple witnesses recorded the encounter. The context is that we have video evidence of an unjustified stop. The context is that the DOJ is now reviewing whether our department has a pattern of racially discriminatory enforcement." She turned back to Vargas. "You detained Judge Voss for 23 minutes. In that time, what evidence of fraud did you develop?" I was waiting for VIN verification, which you never needed because her registration was already confirmed legitimate. What else? I wanted to be thorough. Or you wanted to justify a stop you'd already made based on insufficient grounds. The second attorney, younger, quieter until now, opened a folder. Officer Vargas, we've pulled your stop records for the past 18 months. You've conducted 47 traffic stops. 32 of those stops involved Black or Latino drivers, despite demographic data showing they represent only 18% of drivers in your patrol area. Vargas felt his stomach drop. I stop people based on violations, not race. Then explain the disparity. Those areas have higher crime rates. You patrol a commercial district. Meridian Plaza has one of the lowest crime rates in the city. Pierce leaned forward. Officer Vargas, here's what's going to happen. The department is conducting a comprehensive review of your stop patterns. The DOJ is investigating potential civil rights violations. And Judge Voss has filed a formal complaint through the federal judiciary requesting systemic reform of our traffic stop policies. She filed a federal complaint? She did. And given her position, that complaint carries significant weight. If the DOJ finds patterns of discriminatory enforcement, we could face federal monitoring, consent decrees, and financial penalties in the millions. The room felt smaller suddenly. 22 years of service, 3 years from retirement, full pension benefits, all hanging in the balance because of 23 minutes in a parking lot. What happens now? Vargas asked quietly. That depends on several factors, Pierce replied. Your cooperation with the investigation. Your willingness to undergo retraining. The DOJ's findings. And Judge Voss's assessment of our response. She gets to decide my fate? She gets to evaluate whether our department is serious about reform. And yes, her opinion will matter. Significantly. Pierce closed her folder. Officer Vargas, you're being placed on administrative assignment pending completion of the review. You'll report to desk duty starting Monday. You're not suspended, not yet, but you're removed from patrol pending further determination. The meeting ended with paperwork, acknowledgement forms, incident documentation, union consultation schedules. Vargas signed everything with numb fingers, his 22-year career suddenly uncertain in ways he'd never imagined. 3 weeks later, the Department of Justice released its preliminary findings. The report was 67 pages of statistical analysis, legal precedent, and documented patterns. It didn't name individual officers, but the implications were clear. Riverside Heights Police Department had engaged in systematic racial profiling in traffic stops, vehicle searches, and pedestrian encounters. The evidence was overwhelming. Stop rates for Black drivers were 2.8 times higher than for white drivers. Search rates were 3.4 times higher. Despite this, contraband recovery rates were actually lower for Black drivers. Evidence that searches were based on suspicion rather than evidence. The report included specific recommendations. Mandatory body cameras for all traffic stops, real-time supervisory review of extended detentions, monthly audits of stop demographics, civilian oversight board with investigative authority, and comprehensive bias training for all officers. Local news covered the story, but not sensationally. Just facts. A federal investigation triggered by a single incident, systematic problems revealed through data analysis, reform recommendations that would reshape policing across the region. Judge Elena Voss was mentioned by name once, in the introduction, as the complainant whose experience had initiated the review. The report didn't dwell on her specific encounter. It didn't need to. The data told the story more powerfully than any individual narrative could. 6 months after the stop, Elena returned to Meridian Plaza. Not for a conference call. Not for lunch. For a community forum on police accountability hosted by the Federal Judicial Conference in partnership with local law enforcement. The plaza's event space had been transformed. Rows of chairs, a modest stage, screens showing data visualizations and legal frameworks. An audience of police officers, community members, attorneys, city council members, and judicial staff filled the space with the quiet attention of people who understood this mattered. Elena stood at the podium, looking out at faces that ranged from skeptical to supportive, defensive to curious. I want to begin, she said, by acknowledging that Officer Vargas's stop wasn't an act of individual malice. It was a symptom of systematic training failures that teach officers to use demographic shortcuts instead of evidence-based assessment. On the screen behind her, statistics appeared, the same data from the DOJ report, presented clearly, undeniably. These numbers don't reflect individual racism. They reflect institutional patterns that none of us created alone but all of us maintain through our silence or our complicity. In the back row, Officer Luis Vargas sat with his union representative. The investigation had concluded with a finding of unjustified stop and mandatory retraining. Not termination. Not formal suspension. Just acknowledgement that his judgment had been based on bias rather than evidence. But the damage was done. His reputation, his standing among colleagues, his confidence in his own judgment, all fundamentally altered by 23 minutes that had been recorded, analyzed, and found insufficient. The solution, Elena continued, isn't punishing individual officers. It's changing the systems that teach officers to trust their instincts, when those instincts are shaped by bias we've all absorbed from our culture. She clicked to another slide, proposed reforms, the same ones the DOJ had recommended. Mandatory documentation of stop justifications before approaching vehicles. Real-time supervisory review. Monthly demographic audits. Civilian oversight. These reforms protect everyone, Elena explained. They protect community members from unconstitutional stops. They protect officers from liability by ensuring stops are legally justified. They protect departments from federal oversight by preventing systematic violations before they become patterns. During the question period, someone asked, "Judge Voss, why did you file the federal complaint? Why not just let it go?" Elena considered the question carefully. Because my position gave me a platform that most people don't have. Because staying silent would have been complicity. Because the only way to change systems is to document the ways they fail and demand accountability. Another question, what do you want to happen to Officer Vargas? I want him to understand why the stop was unjustified. I want the department to examine why his training led him to view my vehicle ownership as suspicious. I want systematic change that prevents future officers from making the same assumptions. Not revenge. Not humiliation. Just accountability and reform. A police captain stood. Judge Voss, with respect, these reforms will significantly increase administrative burden on officers. Every stop documented, every decision reviewed, it will slow down law enforcement response. Captain, Elena replied, constitutional rights aren't negotiable conveniences that we abandon when they're inconvenient. If documenting stops creates administrative burden, hire more administrative staff. But don't ask communities to surrender their Fourth Amendment protections so officers can work faster. The response was firm but not harsh. Just clarity about priorities, rights first, efficiency second. 1 year after the incident, the reforms had been implemented. Every officer in Riverside Heights wore a body camera. Every traffic stop was reviewed by supervisors within 24 hours. Monthly reports on stop demographics were published online, searchable by patrol area and officer. The Civilian Oversight Board, 5 community members, 2 attorneys, and 1 retired judge, had investigated 43 complaints in its first year. Most were found unsubstantiated. 7 resulted in additional training. 2 led to formal discipline. Officer Luis Vargas completed 80 hours of bias training. Not as punishment, but as professional development required for all officers under the new policies. The training wasn't simple diversity seminars. It was intensive education in constitutional law, implicit bias research, and evidence-based decision-making. It included role-playing exercises where officers experienced stops from the perspective of civilians. It required officers to articulate specific, factual justifications for their suspicions before acting on them. Vargas returned to patrol duty after 4 months of desk work and training. His stop numbers declined significantly, not because he stopped working but because he stopped making stops based on demographic assumptions disguised as instincts. The data showed it clearly. His stop-to-citation ratio improved. His search-to-contraband recovery rate increased. His complaints dropped to 0. He became, slowly, a better officer. Not through punishment, but through education that forced him to confront the assumptions he'd never examined. 18 months after the stop, Elena pulled into Meridian Plaza again. Same day of the week, Thursday. Same time, mid-afternoon. Same vehicle, the matte black Cybertruck that still turned heads but no longer drew police suspicion. She parked in the same visitor section, in almost the same space where Officer Vargas had first approached her. The plaza looked unchanged. Same fountain, same cafe, same outdoor tables where people conducted business over coffee and pastries. But something fundamental had shifted. Not visibly. Not dramatically. Just measurably. She got out of the Cybertruck, collected her portfolio, and walked toward the federal courthouse annex building where she had a meeting about appellate procedure reforms. No one stopped her. No one questioned her. No one assumed she didn't belong. A police car passed through the plaza, routine patrol. The officer inside glanced at the Cybertruck, registered its presence, and continued driving without stopping. Normal. Unremarkable. The way it should have been 18 months ago. Elena walked across the parking lot, past the exact spot where Vargas had first demanded she step back, where he'd announced with such certainty that this wasn't something she just ended up owning. The spot looked ordinary now. Just asphalt and parking lines and the faint oil stains that marked where thousands of vehicles had come and gone. But reforms had been built on that ordinariness. On the routine prejudice that happened in parking lots and traffic stops and everyday encounters where assumptions replaced evidence. The weight of procedure had been recalibrated. Not perfectly. Not completely. But measurably. Body cameras documented encounters that might otherwise have been forgotten or disputed. Supervisory reviews caught problematic patterns before they became crises. Civilian oversight provided accountability that internal investigations had failed to deliver. And officers like Vargas, not monsters, not villains, just people whose training had taught them to trust biases they'd never examined, were learning to base their decisions on evidence instead of assumptions. The distance between certainty and truth had been measured, documented, and reduced through systematic reform. Elena reached the courthouse annex and paused at the entrance, looking back at the plaza where her Cybertruck sat undisturbed in the afternoon sun. The vehicle that had once been treated as evidence of fraud now sat unremarkable among the other cars, expensive and ordinary, suspicious to no one, belonging to exactly who owned it. Progress wasn't dramatic. It was incremental, bureaucratic, measured in policy changes and training hours and monthly statistics. But it was real. And it began with 23 minutes in a parking lot, documented by witnesses who understood they were seeing something that mattered. One stop. One complaint. One federal investigation. One system forced to confront the assumptions it had taught its officers to trust. The plaza remembered what happened there, not in monuments or memorials, but in the policies that now governed every traffic stop, every interaction, every moment when officers had to choose between assumption and evidence. Judge Elena Voss walked into the courthouse annex, leaving the Cybertruck behind, knowing that tomorrow she'd return to the same plaza, park in the same area, and walk to her meetings without explanation or justification. The way it should have been all along.